little bit about today. What we're going to do is Willie here. Thank you so much, Willie. Willie and I went to high school together, actually. And he's now married to my cousin, which is like so awesome. Darwin Way, right? We're all connected from way back. And Willie is going to start us off with a bit of a welcome to country. Being a Darwin girl, I'm Portuguese and East Timorese. And as an East Timorese person, we're Indigenous to East Timor. I think it's so important in respecting any land that you're on for the Indigenous tribes and the first people that were on the land. So Willie has been gracious enough to do that with us today. And then I'll jump right in and share a bit about me. Willie, anything you want to say?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'd just like to say hello, and I feel blessed to come here and be with Shana today and with her to share her story. And today I'm going to do a bit of a heal on Shana. So we play the didgeridoo, and we can heal certain parts of the body by using our didgeridoo. It's a wind instrument we've used for many hundreds of thousands of years, and we continue to perform, and to this day we use our wind instrument to help heal and protect our people and keep them safe while they're in country, and for other people of other countrymen, so it can be whatever nationality. We can heal you as well, and we'd like to do that today for Shana as a good friend.
Thank you so much. Whew. I was going to say another 100 years, that one. Thank you. 50 at least. Thank you so much, Willie. Anything else you'd like to say to wrap up?
I'd just like to say I'm proud and privileged to do this for my sister girl, and I feel that I've just pushed on some healing powers to her body and her upper chest area. So in doing that, she's good now. She's good as gold. Nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Willie. I feel like, yeah, there you go. Doing God's work over there. I feel like anything I say from this point on is a bonus in my mind. Going through my experience, many have said that I am a conduit for healing for them. So I hope that through me, all of you felt that and took some away for yourself, because that's the purpose of today. My intention for today is truly to leave you with something useful. We have so many one-liners these days about be strong and this too shall pass and all these things that like really sound good, you know, they really sound good, except when you're in the moment and you're like, yeah, I don't think I have any other option than to be strong in this moment. And so I'm really hoping that you're left today with not just inspirational words, but some true functional things that you can take with you in whatever journey and wherever you are in your journey that are useful for whatever it is that you're dealing with. And that's my intention for today. I was born and bred here in Darwin. And for those of you who don't know me, for those of you who have, please act surprised as we go. But I was born and bred here in Darwin in 1980. And big ups to Dripstone High School and Casuarina Shopping Centre that raised me. And in 2003, I saw a newspaper ad in the NT News that said, work and live in Los Angeles and market Australia's Northern Territory. And I thought, that's not real. That can't be right. Is that even a thing? And so I left it to the last day of being able to apply, and it was in the back of my mind the whole time. And on the last day, I said, I really want to go to Los Angeles. And my friends stayed up with me overnight doing my resume to apply for this role. I applied and I interviewed, and in the interview, they said, you know, you're going to America, and Americans have all kinds of natural environments in the States. There's Arizona, Sedona, there's rainforest, they've got everything. Why would they come here? And I said, because it's the real outback. And they stopped and sort of looked at each other. Turns out that happened to be the tagline for Australia's Northern Territory at the time. So needless to say, I got the job. And the next hurdle was visa process. Turns out I needed a degree. I don't have one. And so they said, well, the only way we can do this is if you write an exception to the US immigration. Now, anyone who's dealt with them knows an exception with US immigration is like, that's not even a sentence that you would put together with any kind of hope. Write an exception, and if they deem that you have the similar experience that is required for a degree, that they will make an exception and you'll get the visa. At the time, I was actually working at Darwin Europcar here in the city and at the airport. And turns out they agreed with my petition and they made an exception. And at 22 years old, I moved to the US with $500 in my pocket. I'd never been to Los Angeles before. And I thought, how bad could it be? I'll go over there for a year or two and then come back and get whatever job takes me to whatever place next. So that was the game plan. When I got to the States, I loved it. I ended up working at Tourism Queensland for 6 years and in the travel industry for 10. And then I switched over to advertising and marketing at advertising agencies, which is still what I do now. Over a 10-year period, I had the privilege of working on many really great accounts that gave me a lot of fantastic experience and constantly reminded that I'm just a girl from Darwin. And here I was working on, it's full circle. My nephew will tell you in a split second that he wants to play Call of Duty. That was one of the properties in which I marketed for 6 years. And in 2015, I was feeling really tired. I had worked probably 30,000 hours in 10 years, and an average work year in the US is 1,800. And so 3,000 hours a year turns out to, 60, 80 hours a week. And I thought, oh, I'm just burnt out. I'm really tired. I'm just burnt out. I need to go on a trip. And so the first thing I did was go to Fiji. And I said to a friend of mine, I just want to be Robinson Crusoe. I just want to go to Fiji on a deserted island with nobody. And he was like, internet or no internet? No internet. I just want to be there. And he thought, let's not get crazy, lady. You're not going to go from LA to a deserted island. He goes, I'm not sure if that's a good idea. But I did it. And on the boat ride out to this island that was in the middle of absolutely nowhere, I thought, this is a really terrible idea. I'm going to die out here. It was like in the middle of absolutely nowhere. But at the same time, I thought, you know what? If anything is going to cure this burnout feeling, it's this trip. So I came home after 10 days in Fiji, getting massages like 4 hours a day, did nothing. And I was instantly tired. And I thought, oh, I know why. It's because I wasn't doing yoga and I didn't eat vegan. I've got to do like a better trip, a bigger one, a longer one, and go further. Bali's next. So then 18, or not even 10 months later, I decided we're going to Bali. And that's where I went and met one of my best friends now. Her name is Rachel. So Rachel and I end up in Bali, and it was Kundalini yoga twice a day, vegan, juices every day. I thought, this is going to do it. I'm going to feel amazing. After Bali, I was obviously only 2 hours flight away. So I said, I'm going to come home and be home with my family for Christmas 2015. I get here the first few days having a blast. On Christmas Eve, my cousins and I, one of them sitting over there, decided, why are we sitting here wrapping all these kids' presents? Like, we're not old. Why are we doing this? There's all these kids. They don't need to unwrap all of their presents. Let's get drunk. And I thought, okay, well, I haven't done this in a while. We're here. Why not? And we thought, let's party like in our 20s. At this point, I was 34. And I thought, this doesn't sound like a great idea, but let's give it a go. Why not? Let's YOLO, live for the moment. And on the way to go, we stopped at the grocery store at Hibiscus. And we stopped just to get groceries for Christmas Day. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there and a blood vessel bursts in my eye. And within 45 minutes, I couldn't see out of my right eye. It was the most terrifying thing because it happened so quickly and it was progressive. So at 1 minute, I was like, I'm okay. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, no, this is not okay. Then we're in hospital, in Darwin Hospital, and I'm sitting there on Christmas Eve, and the doctor is telling me, your kidneys are failing. And I'm sitting there just in the twilight zone thinking, I'm sorry, what did you say? I literally kept looking at him and going, wait, my kidneys are you sure? What did you just say? And he said, well, have you been feeling tired? And I said, yeah, I work in advertising. And he goes, okay. And he said, well, has your lower back been hurting? And I was like, yeah, I work in advertising. What is he not understanding? I'm working in advertising. This is normal. I truly felt like I was just tired. And on Christmas Eve, I had an out-of-body experience where I saw myself out of my own body and I could hear the internal dialogue that ran my day. Don't have to, you're thirsty, don't worry about it. Do these next 2 meetings and drink water later. You're hungry, you got 2 more meetings to go, just finish the meetings, then go and eat. I get you're tired, but if you wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m., then you can sleep on the weekend. And I could hear it like on loudspeaker as I sat in the hospital thinking, I've gone away from Darwin when I was 22. I struggled in the US. I fought my way into these industries where on paper, you wouldn't say I'd have the experience. People believed in me. I had opportunities to the max, only to come all the way back to Darwin and die here. I thought this can't be the story. This just does not sound right. This can't be the way this goes. So I went back to the US with a stack of paper and no main physician. I didn't know the health and medical system over there. As many of you probably have heard, what you hear that it's like is really like that, unfortunately, in the US. The medical system doesn't really favor people. You really have to advocate for yourself. Another one of those one-liners that people tell you, advocate for yourself. And I'd say, yeah, there's a little problem. I want to throw up. I'm exhausted. I'm on dialysis. And I don't know what half of these terms mean. So break down advocate for myself for me. Give me like, what does that actually mean in real life as I'm sitting in a different country with no family near me, wondering how do I do this? And that's where my executive training kicked in. It was one of the things that I say to this day saved my life. I am a operations lead. I know how to put together large scale operations and teams of specialists. And so I went into my training. I got an interview log together. Every doctor that I met with, I researched. I understood what their philosophy of medicine was, not just what their accomplishments were. And I didn't care if a doctor was at the top of his game, that if the vibe felt off, he wasn't touching my body. If her attitude was off, I didn't put up with it. And that was the first lesson I learned. I made everything around me work for me. The environment, the nurses, I'm a germaphobe, so the sterilization process of things. I remember standing in front of my dialysis chair, and I only had one specific nurse that I would let work with me, and she would put 2 sheets down on the chair after she bleached it, and I had to watch her do everything. And she would do it with grace and love, and she knew the drill, and I'd walk in there with a beach bag and flip-flops and a sundress like I was going to the beach, to where the doctor was like, "Where are you going? This is dialysis. What are you dressed up for?" And I'd say what my granddad used to say when he was dressed to the nines, sitting in our living room, just sitting there. "You've got to be ready for anything. You never know who else is going to be in here for dialysis." And I was single at the time, and he was like, "I can't even." He was just like, "I don't even know, but I like it." And actually, fast forward this morning, he called me just before I was coming over to give me a pep talk. And him and I went through the entire journey together. And this was from 2016 to 2018. I was on dialysis 2 ways. One way was through a port in my chest that was stitched to the outside and open all the time. So I had to be really, really careful. And then the other way was a tube in my stomach. In America, different to Australia. In Australia, they do the opposite first. The tube in the stomach is a lot more gentle. And so that was, again, one of the differences in medical care, where in America they choose the heart version first. I don't know why, when they know that the other version is easier on your body. But I went along with it unhappily, but it was part of the journey and part of the learning. 2018, a friend of mine that worked with me at tourism, she actually now works at Northern Territory Tourist Commission here. Her name's Nicole. Nicole said, "Hey, I want to connect you with this guy. You're the only 2 Australians I know that live in LA, so the 2 of you should probably be friends." And I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense to me too." His name is Sebastian. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He does the 100 Things bucket list, and he's all about kindness. He's a motivational speaker, and she connected me with him, and he said, "I'm going to include you in every single speech and podcast I do. We're going to find you a kidney donor." At that point, I had no energy, and I'd lost hope that I'd never even borrowed $100 from someone. How am I going to ask somebody to give me a whole organ and go through surgery and do all these things as an option, as like, "Hey, do you feel like having surgery and giving me an organ?" Like, I couldn't even figure out how to ask. And my friends were like, "How are you going to get a living donor if you're not asking anybody?" And so he was really he was really pivotal in, he said, "You don't have to, I'll ask on your behalf." And one day the phone rang, and a lady named Katie, who is a public school teacher in Virginia, says, "I saw your picture, and the minute I saw your face, I knew that I was meant to give you my kidney." And she said, "So what do I need to do? Where do I need to apply? What do I have to do?" And I thought, wow. I was still at the hello, how are you? I mean, I just didn't even know what to say. And so she went through the testing process, and we fast became sisters through the testing process. That has a whole nother bunch of challenges. And it took a year and a half to get her cleared. And right before the year and a half ended up about to be finished, COVID hit. She only needed one more blood test and a couple of more checkups, but kidney transplants in the US are deemed elective. So when COVID hit, all elective surgeries were on pause as all the hospitals in the US were jam packed. I couldn't even wrap my head around the fact that a kidney transplant was an elective surgery. And at that point, I was too exhausted to even question it. We were on lockdown. We couldn't even get labs for anything other than COVID. Nothing else was happening there. And it added a 6-month period. At the end of that 6 months, we were at August 2020, and she finally got approved. So you can imagine, we were so excited. She finally got approved. The doctors said, come in, we've got 2 more tests to do, CT scan and a stress test for your heart. We clear you on both of those. We schedule surgery in around 6 weeks. We're on our way. And I thought, fantastic. I get this surgery, I get the transplant, never talking about this again, moving on, going back to my normal life. Business as usual. And now the extra bonus is I have a sister and I love her. She loves me. We're so the same energy. We were totally connected. Great. I do the CT scan and the heart test, and the doctors call and they say, there's a cyst on your kidney, and we think there's 70% chance that it's cancerous. And I thought, wait a minute. The same kidney you've been looking at for 5 years, that sentence had a lot more F-bombs. 5 years. Now that she's approved, now you're telling me there's 70% chance that it's cancerous. And the same doctor said, it lit up like a Christmas tree. And I thought, I'm going to die. That's it. We've gone through all of these challenges. I've kept my patience. For those of you who know me, patience is always where my personal growth bucket has a empty box of opportunity to continue to grow. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to die. We've gone through all of these challenges, all of these moments. We've moved through everything they've told me to do. I did it to a T. And now she's approved, and now there's another hurdle. It's a sign. Now, I've always been very spiritual. I've never been religious. And even spiritual, I'd say my definition is I'm attuned enough to know that there's more to life than just what you see in front of you, right? Whatever it is, whether it's God, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Allah, whether it's a creator, whether it's the universe, Mother Gaia, whatever version. But there's something greater than me that is happening behind the scenes. And so I didn't go to church younger. My family is Catholic. I refused to do my communion at 8 years old, which, as you guys know, is really not an option in our family. It just is what happens, right? I was a no. It was a hard pass. I hated the nun that was here. Poor thing. Her name's Madre Leonia. Couldn't stand her. Wasn't going near her. Didn't want anything to do with her. Couldn't put me in Bible study. At 8 years old, I was a no. And that didn't change. I didn't go to church. I didn't do any of that. No studying of anything. And what fascinated me more about spirituality, and again, it's my definition, is the rituals behind things, the manifestation behind things, the energy behind things. And so I thought, this is all of the synchronicities and signs that says you're meant to die. You're actually not meant to make it through this thing. So it took me a couple of days to just really, as you can imagine, freak out and just thought, I've got nothing left. There's just what it is. As I was coming to terms with it, it was a Friday afternoon. I decided that was my Starbucks day. And I was going through the drive-through to grab an iced tea. And the cardiologist called. His name is Dr. Gift. He's an amazing man. He is a cardiologist, 20 years, and his father, 40 years at the same hospital, which is Cedars-Sinai. Many of you might have heard of Cedars-Sinai. It's right in the middle of Los Angeles, created for celebrities is what it's known for, but it's a non-profit hospital now open to everybody. And he calls and says to me, Shana, forget your kidney. And I was like, wait. I said to him, pause. Just to let you know, I cannot take one more thing. I just can't. So whatever you're going to say next, you just need to know I literally can't take one more thing. And he said, I totally get it. And he said, your heart is at 15%. Wherever you are right now, I need you to turn the car around and come to my office very calmly. And I'm in the Starbucks drive-thru, right, like halfway. And I hang up. I remember vividly, I got the iced tea, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to do exactly what this man said. Turn the car around and drive to his office. That's all I have to do in this moment. So I turn the car around and I drive to his office. I live in San Diego. His office is in Los Angeles. That's a 2.5-hour drive on one of those big 6-lane freeways, 6 lanes both side freeways that you've seen. That is even more dramatic in person. For those who haven't been to Los Angeles, it's all very, very dramatic in the sense that there are cars that are going 120, 130 k's an hour down that freeway very frequently, and lots of them. I was driving down that freeway and I thought, I'm going to die. Like, if I thought the kidney cancer was a sign, there's no way. And in that moment, a veil of darkness came over me. And I just remember driving on this freeway, and all of a sudden, all I can see is a pinhole in front of me. And this darkness just washed over me. And it felt romantic. It felt like a good idea. And I could hear a person speaking to me and saying, come with me. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that it felt like, yeah, that's a good idea, but something felt off. Just that slightest seed of doubt was like, no, I don't think that's like a heavenly place. And I reached over and I hit the dashboard that happened to redial my best friend from Bali, Rachel. She's a Pilates instructor. And all I had to say was, Rachel, I'm on the freeway. And she said, okay, we are going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and breathe. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm in this darkness. She's counting. I have lost all sensibility, and I'm in a vehicle going 90 miles an hour. And all I remember was counting and breathing with her. And it felt like 15 seconds. It felt like we did the rep 3 times. And the veil started to lift. And I feel like to this day, that's where I chose that I was going to live. It was in that moment that I chose that I was going to get through this. So she's with me all the way to the doctor. And I walk into his office. And he goes into doctor mode. And he's like, Shana, my God, I don't know what happened. What happened? We just looked at this. I don't even understand. And I'm like, I'm right here with you. He was like, we're going to figure this out. So he's tapping away and he's typing away and he's looking at numbers. And all of a sudden he pauses and he looks at me and goes, how are you feeling about this? And I said, well, I think I'm going to die. Let me just put that out there. So I feel like I need to spend all my money, curse out every single person I've ever wanted to curse out, and drink a bunch of tequila. And he goes, well, he was like, my plan is to keep you alive for long enough for those people to get retribution. So you may want to hold off. And I was like, okay. And we looked at each other and he goes, we're here. And he said something so profound to me. He said, when I first met you, something about you said to me that you were meant to do big things in this world. And he said, and I just knew that my job was to keep you alive for you to do those things. And he said, I don't know about you, but I'm going to make good on it. And I thought, wow. And I said to him, am I going to die? And he goes, do you know how many people are walking around LA with a heart and a kidney? And I was like, no, I need a number. He goes, tons, so many, walking around, marathons, doing all kinds of things. And that's where I flashed back to. I interviewed every doctor and I made sure that I was around doctors that valued the same things I did, spoke to me in the same way that I would speak to a person, and never treated me like a patient. They treated me like a human being, and I treated them like a human being, of like, we are going to get through this together. And you happen to have the doctory stuff, and I'm a great patient, so I'm going to do that. And we're going to come together, and I'm going to keep my mind in check. You're going to keep my labs in check, and we're both going to come together, and we're going to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And it was in that moment that I really got comfortable, because he said to me, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go live your life. I've got a game plan. When I text you and tell you go here or go there, that's what you do. And that's what I did. He would text me and say, do X, Y, Z. I would go that day and do X, Y, Z. And we had a really, really solid partnership. It is so important when you're going through anything medical that you are surrounded by the people who value and operate just as a human being, not because it was me. I just got that that's how he was as a person, that value the same things you do, that operate in the same way you do, that are going to care for you in the same way that you would care for somebody else. Critical that happens. So he said to me, this is the game plan. First thing we have to do is see if we can get your heart strength up. If we can do a couple of surgeries and get your heart up, we'll do that first, and then we'll go on to the next. But after that, we need to get your kidney out to make sure that it's not cancerous. Then we clear you, get you strong enough, put you back on the kidney and heart transplant list, then get you a heart and kidney, then we transplant you. I was like, too many steps, way too many steps. Too many Y's in the road, too many steps in the process. This is not going to happen. I'm in operations. That sounded like a lot of hoping and wishing and praying. That's not going to happen. And he was like, okay, well, let's break it down a different way. Let's see if we can get your heart strong enough. So Labor Day weekend, Labor Day in the States is September 2020. He puts me in hospital. We do the first procedure. And our relationship is so strong that he understood what I needed mentally to stay strong. My room was set up like a fancy college dorm, if you can even picture it. Crystals, diffuser. I had my own comforter and pillow. Everything was custom. The nurses kiboshed candles because they were like, oxygen in here, can't really. It was like, fine. But we had music. We had very zen vibes. And everyone knew that if they were going to come into my room, they had to pause at the front door, gather themselves together, and bring in good energy. And he would check on me every day. And every day we talked about the connection between your emotions, your mental state, and your physical body. It matters. If you remember nothing else from this afternoon, please know that what you speak and what you say in your mind impacts your physical body. We talked about the fact that when someone says, oh, my heart dropped when I heard that news, their heart function actually drops 20 to 30%, and it takes 2 to 3 weeks to come back up. So that's where I really started my journey of I'm clearing anything that doesn't work for me, anything, any person, any conversation that is for anything other than this is going to work out and this is all meant to be for the good of something. I don't even know what it is. And that's what I did. I surrounded myself with 5 core people. and they were the only people that I would answer the phone to. And that was my group of best friends. And then everyone else was a healer of some sort, a breath worker, a Reiki master, whatever it was, from whatever practice in any of the continents, we were completely open to all of it. It was like, do all of the things and see what works. In that moment, I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I should probably get right with God if there is one. My family being Catholic, I thought, now is probably not the time to be taking chances of being rebellious. I might just want to check all the boxes off just to make sure. And so I was sitting there talking to my friend, and I said, I really want to do some kind of prayer group or something, but I'm not good at this stuff, so I don't want to be anywhere that anybody's hugging me or touching me or doing potlucks. I'm not trying to do any of that. I just really want to get down to, was there a Jesus? Was he real? Where did he live? Where in the world did this happen? I want the geography. I want the facts and the history. I don't want the lady who saw the angel and blah, blah, blah. No, I want who was born and when did they die, and that's my version. Can you imagine of like connecting? Is my version of connecting with my spirituality and learning more. And then I remembered I have an aunt who's a whole Catholic nun, a legitimate Catholic nun, wears the uniform. I've never seen her in plain clothes. And I thought, perfect. I can ask all the stupid questions. I can, just be myself and just really tell her I don't know any of this. I don't even know if it's real, but here I am because I think I'm going to die. So I might just want to check this out. So I call her and I said to her, auntie in Portuguese is Dia. And I said, Dia, I'm really, really scared. I think I'm going to die. And she said, yeah, darling, you might. And I'm like, what kind of a nun are you? Like, you're supposed to help me. You're supposed to make me feel more calm. Like, how are you helping me? And she says, yeah, it's scary. This is serious. You might die. But either way, you'll be taken care of. So all there is to ask yourself is, what are you going to do with the time that you have on earth? Whether that's 10 days, whether that's 10 weeks, whether that's 10 months, 10 years, or 10 decades. What are you going to do with that time? And I paused and I said, can we do Bible study every Saturday? And she said, like a true Catholic nun, yes, darling, and Wednesdays. And I'm like, dang, twice a week? And at the time, I was running an advertising agency. So I'm like, how is this going to work? And I said to my assistant, Wednesdays, 1:30, don't book anything else. That's my Bible study time. She was like, what? If you knew how wild it was for me to do Bible study, it was like not happening. It was wild. And the first thing she said was, it sounds like you need a different relationship with God. He's not human. And so to spend our time trying to understand why he does what he does, it's kind of a waste of time because we're never going to understand it. And I thought, well, that's pretty profound. And, if I replace the word God with universe, again, Buddha, any belief system of a creator of some sort, I thought that makes logical sense to me. I think I can get behind that. And so that's where I started the journey, was really figuring out what relationship did I have to more than just myself. Because in that moment, I realized I'm good for it. If there's something that is a goal that I want, if there's something that I want to do, I'm good for going after it and I'm good for getting it. This feels a little out of my realm. This feels like I don't think I can do this by myself or even with a group of people because I really think I'm going to die. So I was at a point where I had to believe in something greater than me. And this is part of the journey, is really the discovery of me believing in something outside of me that works in my favor for real, was what was profound about that time period. We got to November, and my friend Rachel from Bali, she calls and says, so what's the latest? And I said, look, They've done a surgery now. Surgery didn't work. I healed from the surgery to try and get my heart to be stronger. The next thing is the heart's going to heal to strong enough for me to then undergo kidney surgery. So we're pacing out the days to where I feel strong enough for them to put me back into surgery to get the kidney out and confirm that it's not cancerous. That's the next step. And she said, "Oh, this is going to be great." And I thought, how is this going to be great? She goes, "This is what's going to happen. We are going to get your surgery for your kidney at Thanksgiving, and you're going to get your kidney out as a thanks to the universe, as your gift to the universe. And then you're going to get your heart and kidney at Christmas as your gift back. And it's going to be a Christmas miracle. We're making a Christmas movie. I love a good Christmas movie, and I'm going to be in it. I never thought I would ever get the opportunity to be, and I'm going to play myself, of course, because I'm your best friend. So I'm going to be in it, and that's what's going to happen. Are you up for that?" And at the time, I was in the movie Final Destination. You know where, like, if the car accident doesn't kill you, the garbage disposal does, right? And so I'm like, her movie sounds way better. So I'm going to go into her movie. I still had a ton of doubt, though. I still was like, I think I'm going to die. But if this makes her feel better, I'm going to go into her movie. So Thanksgiving, sure enough, they scheduled a surgery on Thanksgiving, which in America is the last Thursday of November. And they took the kidney out and said, it's not cancerous. And I thought, well, her movie is kind of starting to unfold. Maybe I should take this a little more seriously. So I got a little bit of hope of like, well, maybe. And so I called the doctor, cardiologist, and I said, listen, we're making a Christmas movie and we need to have a Christmas miracle to go along with it because my kidneys failed Christmas Eve. So I need the kidney and heart transplant on Christmas Day so it can all match up because we're making a movie. So what do we have to do to speed this whole thing up? And he was like, well, it doesn't really work like that. But if anyone can do it, you can. And he said, here's the list. It normally takes 3 to 4 months to get all your clearances. Have at it. And so I felt like I was in a in the Matrix where bullets are flying and everything is in slow motion, but it's working. I'd call a specialist and they'd say, someone just cancelled. Can you be here in 30 minutes? And I'd go. I'd call someone else and they'd say, well, we can't do it today, but Monday afternoon, and I'd go. And 3 days, I got all of the clearances done where they were like, what did you do? And I just was sending in pieces of paper saying cleared, cleared, cleared. Fast forward to December 22nd, and it was the last exam that I needed to do plus a chest x-ray. And it's a pressure test for the heart. And the pressure test was going to determine whether I was a level 5 to go on the heart and kidney transplant or a level 4. Now, at this point, COVID was running so rampant in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has a population of around 20 million people. The stats were that there was 1 in 3 people that had COVID, and the hospitals were completely booked out. They had overflow beds that were set up, no elective surgeries, telling people don't go to the emergency room. It was a state of crisis. And when I say we were locked down in the US, I mean we were shut down. Parks, beaches, any entertainment, completely shut down. If you look at the history, Las Vegas, as a huge strip of neon lights, completely closed. Every single casino shut for months. It wasn't a week's period, it was months, a year that we were completely locked down. Couldn't go anywhere. And so you can imagine me with my heart at 15%. They were like, do not touch anybody. Don't go near anybody. Don't go anywhere. You cannot catch this because you will not survive. So December 22nd, I'm in hospital. I come out of the pressure test and they decided to admit me at the last minute. And he said, only if I can find you a bed. Lo and behold, a bed was available. And he admitted me that night. And he said, your numbers are around a 4. And we're going to list you, but I need to have a couple more clearances done before. So we got the couple of clearances done, and by this time, it was December 24th. I'd already sent a note out because you can imagine I'm in hospital by myself. No one's allowed in there, fully masked up. The nurses and doctors were all completely covered up. And I sent a note out on Facebook saying, look, if you know of a loved one that's passing, I'm in here. I can be nominated to get their organs, and pray for me. Whatever your version of prayer is, meditation, positive vibes, manifestation, praying, temple, whatever version, all religions, any version of spirituality, all accepted. We're counting it all. We need all of it. And in that moment, I'd really surrendered to, I've done everything I can. I've done everything that I could do. And at this point, it felt like if someone says to you, if I finish work on time, I'll come over for dinner. But if I don't, I can't come. If I have to work late, I won't be there. The preparation of that kind of scenario where it's like there's a good chance they will, there's also a good chance they won't, equal way, I'll be prepared either way. That was the notion, and that was the feeling that I had there, was I'm prepared either way, because I felt really confident that I had really truly done everything that I knew to do, that he knew to do, that we'd all known to do. And December 24th, they put me on the list. At this point, I had probably 3,000 people pinging and messaging and praying and sharing, and it was so overwhelming. Many of you here today prayed for me, and like really, I felt every bit of it. I felt every bit of that energy, and it mattered. I really wanted to share today that it really mattered from thousands of miles away. It made a life-saving difference. All of the nurses in the ward we're praying, we're making a Christmas movie, it's going to be a Christmas miracle. And the doctor calls and he said, you're on the list, December 24th, 4 p.m. And he said, but listen, it's still 6 to 8 weeks. So it's not going to be a Christmas miracle, but you can still make a movie. He said, it's still going to be February or so, January. We can still make the movie. It's Hollywood. Just make it based loosely on facts. And I said, well, who's going to watch a Hallmark movie and find out it's made in February? Like, that's not legit. It has to be actually on Christmas. And he said, well, look, we've done everything we can do. Now we pray. Christmas Eve, the chaplain of the hospital came in to see me. She happened to be a friend 3 times connected from someone who'd shared the post, and called her and said, there's a lady who's praying for a Christmas miracle in Cedars-Sinai. Why don't you go and see her? She says to this day that this is why she works on Christmas. And she walked in and said, would you like to pray with me? Now, mind you, I'm still on my faith discovery. I had no clue how to pray the rosary at all. She said, here's a rosary. And I was like, oh, okay. And so she did all the praying and I did the nodding, and I'm with it and this is going to work. And I was totally in it with her, but I had no clue how to do it. I called my aunt straight after and said, can you help me learn the rosary in case this lady comes back? I want to actually do the rosary with her. So she shows me how to do it 3 times that day. And what I came to learn from that is I like the rituals, the ancient rituals of all of the religions, and just how that comes together, as opposed to the actual religion itself. I'm really into like the practice of. And so that was one of my meditation tools on that Christmas day that I used. And I thought, if I'm going to be here on Christmas, we're going to make this fun. And so all the nurses, we had a blast. We were just having a great old time. 10:30 p.m. Christmas Day, 3 of the nurses came up to the door and said, "It's still Christmas. We're still praying. We're all about the Christmas miracle, but you should probably go to sleep." And I thought, yeah, you're right. And I leaned back as I looked at my phone, and the phone rang. And it was Cedars calling to tell me they had a heart and a kidney for me. And the entire floor erupted in cheers. And then there was this sacred silence of, oh my God, this stuff actually works. Like, wow. It was like, we did it. It actually works. This is a Christmas miracle. And they were beside themselves. The doctor said it never, ever, ever happens, that it's not a thing for a heart and a kidney to come in one day. And they were absolutely beside themselves. Flash to my aunt who's in Portugal. The time in Portugal was early morning Christmas. And like I say, she's a real nun. Like, she's super cute. And what I love about her is she's the type of nun that you would think of a nun would be, right? She's very connected. We study Jay Shetty and we talk about Eckhart Tolle, and she's so exploratory with all kinds of things. She's very grounded and she's just normal, which I love about her. She'll say it, she's also a rebel, which I also love about her. So, and I said, rebel and nun doesn't seem to work. She's like, it takes effort. I'm like, fair. So she, at the same time, she was in the chapel, as you can imagine, nuns on Christmas, a very, very busy day. And she walked over to the baby Jesus and she said, "Give Shana a heart and kidney, please." And then walked off and thought to herself, I probably should have done a better job in my prayer. And she said, I was walking away feeling instantly bad because I didn't do the proper thing. And my phone lit up. And she looked in her pocket, and it was me sending her a message saying they just called and they have a heart and a kidney for me. And she said, I raced back over there and I did it properly and I apologized. I'm like, okay, good. Oh, it was so fun. And so everyone was cheering and excited. The next day, the nurses said to me, this is why I love them to this day. I go in there and they just are so, they all remember the moment. But I walked, the next day, the nurses came in and they said, "Oh, you're our Christmas miracle. This is amazing. They're going to want to take so many pictures of you. We need to make sure you look hot after surgery." And I'm like, yes, now you're speaking my language. We did facials. They braided my hair. They did all the disinfectant stuff. We were having an absolute blast. The doctors came in and they're like, "You look great." I'm like, "I know, I'm ready. We're so ready." Mind you, I had tubes coming out. We had this huge IV stand with tubes and buttons and things beeping everywhere. We were having an amazing time. The anesthesiologist comes in. He was more excited than I was. His name is Carve, and he goes, "Shana, oh my God, I saw your name on the list," and I thought, yes, it's going to be a great day. I'm like, okay. He's clearly ready for surgery. He was like, "Remember me? I did your surgery in September. This is going to be awesome. We're going to do everything right. You're going to be great." He was so pumped. The cardiologist walks in and goes, "Oh, you're here. I can't believe it. You called it Christmas miracle." Surgeon comes in and he said, "Everybody's in here. Are you ready?" And my standard question to surgeons is, "Are you ready? I'm asleep. Did you eat this morning? Did you argue with anybody? How's your partner? Show me your hands. Are you shaking? How are you feeling? Do you need a Red Bull? Like, what's happening? Where am I on the list? Are you too tired? Not tired enough?" All of the things, right? I'm the most annoying person on earth on surgery day. So the surgeon came in and he said, "I'm good." And while they're standing there, we're celebrating. I remember feeling really sick suddenly. And I looked up at them and I said, "Oh, I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like, it's this whole no eating after midnight business. Like, who does that to somebody? What is it, like 1 o'clock? I'm starving." And I sat up and leaned back. And what I remember was I fell asleep. And then all of a sudden, I'm in infinite darkness. I don't know if any of you have done Joe Dispenza meditation. He talks about the quantum field. And that's exactly what it felt like. I was in infinite darkness, no physical sense of time or space. It felt like it was dark, but it wasn't empty, but it was empty. It wasn't dark like you could flip on a light and see something, but it was blackness, kind of like if I was floating in outer space type of a feeling. And then suddenly I'm standing there and there's a hallway and there's a light and there's God and Jesus. And I instantly knew where I was because a wave of compassion hit me so hard. It engulfed me and it washed over me. And the compassion was for everything that comes along with being a human. The pain, the suffering, the joy, the emotions, the struggle, the unknowns, the inner dialogue, the insecurities. It was like everything about being a human being, all of the compassion just washed over me as if you took every single person and times it by 10,000. And I instantly knew where I was. And I looked up. Jesus was in the form of a person. He's standing exactly like a person is standing in front of me now. And God was this like shadowy figure. It looked like an ancient person in a shadow. Couldn't tell any features or anything like that. And then the light behind them didn't have any source of light. Didn't look like a lamp or anything. And I remember vivid detail of standing there as if I was just gone to a different room. And I was kind of leaning in like this in the hallway. And Jesus did a little look over and a little nod as if to say, now's your moment. And I thought, okay, I get what's happening here. And a voice starts to speak to me and say, you are to start a church with your best friend, all denomination, not with the intention to convert, but to demonstrate that we are all united simply because we are religious. I never intended religion to divide, only to unite. And I said, okay. And I came back into the darkness, the infinite darkness, and then I was asleep and someone was trying to wake me up. You know how someone's just like tapping you on the shoulder or something like that to like get your attention to wake up? And I thought, God, what do they want? Like, who is this? What is happening? What do they want? And I opened my eyes, and there was a nurse that was sitting on top of me giving me chest compressions. The hitting was her doing chest compressions. And I can remember my whole body moving up and down. And I looked at her and I said, Margaret, relax. And I moved her off me and I sat up and I said, guys, relax. I just took a little nap. Where were we? And they were like, what is happening? Their eyes were hanging out of their heads and it was deathly silence. It was almost like everyone was just standing there. And I was looking around like, and the surgeon goes, take her to the OR right now. And everything started to move. They raced me to the OR. Turns out they were just coming to say hello. My heart or kidney both weren't there yet. They called ahead to get the heart in a helicopter. And then the kidney by road, which is the organ transplant delivery protocol, and raced me to the OR. As I was in the OR, I could feel them starting to plug and clip and push and what have you. I wasn't fully out, and the Kave, the anesthesiologist, was trying to put me under. I grabbed his wrist and I looked up at him and I said, Kave, you've got me, right? And he was crying to where I thought, he's got me. And he said, 1,000% I've got you. I'll see you in a minute. And that's when I went out. They said the heart was in a helicopter for 3 hours coming. They kept my heart beating manually while the other heart was coming, raced up to the top of the building as the helicopter lands, got the heart, raced down, put the heart in. It started working immediately. My kidney was coming by road, and that was 14 hours. And so by the time my kidney got there, they put my kidney in. I was under the whole time. They found one more blood clot and had to do a surgery here. And so they raced me back into the OR. At this point, I was out for about 26, 28 hours. I woke up strapped to the bed, intubated. P.S. They don't tell you that part of surgery. Thank God, because it was my worst nightmare. And I had to lay there for like another 12 hours, 10 hours, just counting the time on the clock as everything was settling. And 3 days later, I was walking. To this day, they remember exactly where they were in the moments that it happened. There's absolutely no reason that I should be sitting here sharing this story other than something greater that decided that there was a bigger plan. And my donor, she was 29 and she died on Christmas Day, something that I still wrestle with in the sense of, why things happen how they do. One of my friends who I love dearly said, listen, I love this whole story and everything, but there's a little problem. I said, what? You hate going to church? So I don't know how you're going to be the one to start a church. I was like, I have no idea what that means. The only thing that I think I have digested out of that whole sentence is my belief system, and it took all denominations to get me here, all different kinds of prayers and all different kinds of rituals. But also when he said, you are too, I didn't hear it as a mission. I heard it as that's the function that I'm pre-built for. And that is bigger than my purpose. It's more just like, that's what you're built for. Whether you agree with it or like it or not, like, this is your function. This is what you're built for. And I heard it like a fork. Primary use of a fork is to scoop food and eat it, but you could dig a hole, you could open a soda can, you could use it to jar a door. Like, there's multiple uses that it would absolutely work for, but one particular one that it's properly, intentionally designed for. And that's how I heard it. The major lessons that I learned out of that experience were select who you're around. I chose those doctors. I made sure that we were on the same page, that we had the same values, such that their actions in those moments, if it was reversed, I would have done the same thing. And I felt good about that fact that I would have done the same thing they would have done. They believed in more than just medicine. They also believed in celery juice every morning and vitamins. They checked all of my vitamins, still do. Vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin B. They don't just prescribe medication. They look at all of the nutrients that it takes to have a body function. They're interested in more than just the normal, which matched me, right? That was a vibe that I needed. It was one of the biggest lessons I learned. And the second one was believe in something greater than yourself. My grandmother taught me that, says it all the time. Because if you're reliant on just your two hands, you're limited. Because there are situations and times where you don't know what to do. And the only thing there is to believe in something greater that is in your favor, that does work out, that you are taken care of. And I think the biggest one is that I make things work for me. And I don't compromise on what that looks like. That's probably the fundamental thing that has changed. I found myself easily being able to compromise on behalf of something, even something that I wanted. But now I really listen to my higher power, and I really listen to my body. And I serve my body such that it allows me to serve. I serve it so that I have enough energy to do things like this. I serve it such that I can make it on a 27-hour flight to be here and be present, with my family. And so it's things like that, I think, that have really shifted for me in that journey and in that process. And I'm very intentional with where I spend my time. And so the fact that all of you are here with me is it's more special than I could even put words to, because I value time differently. Every minute matters, who you spend it with matters. And if the pain and the experience that I went through is useful to give even just a little bit of hope that there are times when prayers get answered, and there are times that miracles do happen, and there are things that happen that you don't understand, both good and bad, but that there is the opportunity. And at the end of the day, I'm just a girl from Darwin, like none of this was part of my plan. And so, yeah, I really appreciate being able to share with you and being here, um, and just paying my thanks and my respects to where I was born and the people that I grew up with. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, I'm totally open. I know a lot of the topics are taboo. It's a safe space. There's really no question that you need to hold back on. I'm more than happy to answer anything anyone is curious about. I know many people are going through their own struggles and their own things that they're dealing with. I'm totally, completely open to answer any question at all. Hi, Sue. Yes. Yeah, so that's what's interesting. Thank you for asking that. I really appreciate it, the question. So, the donor had damage to her kidney that she didn't know about. The doctors went ahead with a transplant because I was flatlining. And we actually just talked about it 3 months ago, where they said to me, there are moments in time when you have the opportunity to do something heroic or be cautious. We went the hero's journey. But the hero's journey isn't quite done yet. The kidney isn't healing in the way in which they wanted it to. So actually, just yesterday, they put me back on the transplant list for my kidney. And I had to add a doctor last month to clear me for it. And it's interesting, right? Because it's the dichotomy of, like, it was the worst experience was the waiting time. And my instant question was like, really? Again? I've got to do it all again? I've done everything you told me to do. Right? That's my whole story. And so yesterday to today, I really kind of paused and thought, okay, if the outcome of in movie making, it's called majors and minors, if the outcomes of the minors are what is me being able to do this today with all of you, I can't wait to see what's going to be at the end of this next piece, because I just have it not like a belief system. It's hard to describe. It's not like a belief system. It's just a knowing that I truly am going to be taken care of. But it's not a placid one. I was on the phone with the doctor today saying, no, I need them to list me like this and not like that. And I was giving him all kinds of orders today, which he started laughing. He's like, nothing's changed. I'm like, no, it's worse because I died and came back. Now you got to go faster. So, you know, so yeah. So at the moment, I'm on the kidney transplant list again. But it's so critical as being an organ donor, just to think that I'm here because someone just ticked a box at the MVR to say, yeah, sure, I'll be an organ donor. And that's the only reason I'm here. So something in me just says, I'm going to be fine. And this is just the icing on the cake, if you will, that last little piece that they have to sort out. Yeah. So the answer is yes. But it's less about me wanting to. I always thought it was super corny to be a motivational speaker, to be honest with you. I'm like, who wants it? Like, no, nobody wants, no, right? That was my own thing. But it's one of those things where it's the same feeling for me as like when I leave the house and if I think I've left the oven on and I literally can't concentrate until I go back and double check. It's the same feeling for me. It's literally the same physical feeling of like if I'm not actually sharing the story, it feels like I'm dying inside. it just feels like it's wrong. Like a 29-year-old died for me to be here. The least I can do is share the impact that she had for me to even be here speaking, whether I want to or not. You know, and that's my wrestling. Like none of this was in my plan. If it was left to me, I would be the head of an advertising agency and be doing my, business thing and would never have to talk about my feelings again, frankly. Like I just really not interested at all. So it's really hard for me to share such a vulnerable experience, but it's also perfect of I'm also a germaphobe as an example, and I found over the last few months that a lot of people want to hug me and shake my hand, and I'm like, it's really funny, real funny, because I'm so not. But it's a service of it. It feels like that's part of what that purpose was. I don't understand why, and I don't even know how. I mean, we put this event together on a Sunday afternoon on Lynn's patio next to her pool when we just figured it out and it kind of came together. So, yeah, it feels a bit like that. Oh, Kerry Washington. And the movie is actually going out to a production company next week, getting walked in. So, fingers crossed that they're interested. She's made it quite clear that she's playing herself. Yeah. Yeah, so the recovery process was interesting because for 2020, I wasn't eating and I was literally drinking water. Everything made me nauseous. So it was almost like my body was already in a reset where my best friends would sit next to me, and it's something for those who have a loved one that's going through life or death situation, or the loved ones. You can never say that this. You can never say the right thing. Like there's just, you know what I mean. People have said the weirdest stuff to me. I just came to grips with like you can never say the right thing. But my best friends that were surrounding me, the five of them, would eat next to me and just go, "Oh, this burger's so good." And I'm like, "It's not that good." They'd go, "Oh, it's so good. You don't want any of it. I get it. You feel sick, but it's so good." And they would do this thing that would have me sit there and go, "Oh, maybe." So that was the way I would eat, was like just trying, or they would cut up carrots and crackers and all different kinds. I found out later they'd message each other and say, she's eating peppers now and carrots. So that's good. If you come over here, those two things are good. And then the next day I'd be like, I don't want to see a carrot ever again in my life. Like it was like that for a year. So in the recovery process, it really was an opportunity to start from scratch. And I think the hardest thing for me wasn't the physical pain. It was actually people saying to me, well, you used to like this. And I'm like, yeah, but she died. Like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know if I want that. Like, I don't know. I didn't eat for a year. I know I don't want this, but it was that kind of exploration of like, who am I now? That rehabilitation process was the hardest. And what I leaned on most was the energy around me. I leaned on the breathing was a huge, because you can imagine my chest was cut right down the middle. I had the kidney surgery here and then this surgery here, so I couldn't move. So for me, it was important for breathing and walking. I would force myself to walk. It felt like razor blades, but I'd force myself. And those two things gave me a lot of grounding. And then laughter. So me and my best friend were locked in the house for 2 months. We weren't allowed to touch anyone, see anyone. People had to do deliveries to the front door. They couldn't come anywhere near me. And I peed everywhere. Learning how to pee again. I hadn't had the urge to pee in 4 years. I was like a toddler. I had to wear diapers, right? And it was just like we had the most fun of just laughing about like, what clothes do you want to wear? It was really like I was a toddler to then the first time I drove as a teenager, I was freaking out. Like it felt like a rebirth to the truest extent, where even my physical healing, my vocal cord was dislocated from being under for that long. So I had to learn to swallow again, and I had to learn how to tone my voice again because it was completely gone for 8 weeks. So it really was like a baby. I got on a schedule of eating where it was like you wake up and you eat this, and there was like 5 meals a day that were planned out for me. I had the opportunity to truly start from scratch, which was a really sacred experience. But I went back to basics, and now I eat when I'm hungry, I sleep when I'm tired, I drink when I'm thirsty. I just keep it that simple. I really do. I let my body do what it does. I don't put any pressures on myself around that kind of thing. And I focus very much on breathing because of the oxygen circulating. It makes such a huge difference. Both. I notice that when I get stressed, I stop breathing even in the moment when I'm talking. And I have to remind myself. And one of the biggest things actually in rehab was pausing. If I was in the middle of whatever and I needed to pause, everything would stop around me to pause. Even if I was in the middle of a scan or an MRI or whatever, I'd say turn all the machines off. I need 5 minutes, and that's very sacred for me. That helped me recover more than you would think. It was the peripheral items of just giving myself the room to allow myself to do what I wanted to do and what I needed to do, which I don't think we give ourselves enough permission most times to do that. At least not me. I have. Many of you actually did a bunch of videos for me to send out. Every time I've gone to do it, I felt like, what do you say? Do you know what I mean? I don't really know what to say. Um, I mean, like, thank you feels so basic. I just truly don't know what to say. I've always been a doer, and I think what I know to do is to make sure that I live a really full life to do her justice so that it's not going to waste. And one day I'll find the courage to actually write down what it is that would feel half as warranted to share with a family that have lost a loved one on Christmas Day. Last Christmas I thought was going to be very celebratory. It was dark night of the soul for me for 2 weeks, where I thought, why me? Like, why not her? She was 29. I've already lived 11 years longer than she has. That was a whole thing, you know? So I just don't know what to say. I genuinely don't know what to put on paper to say to them. But I'm sure the words will come when they're supposed to. Yes, Nudes. Yeah, I think I definitely have a bucket list, but then I've also kind of gone the opposite direction. It's like a dichotomy. Like I definitely I don't want to die without doing these things. You know, there was a moment on that first surgery where, you know how people say, like, my whole life flashed before me. Mine was a weird flash. It was like, what am I going to do with my card? Does someone know my phone password? My whole life is in there. Where's my wallet going to go? But I should probably put some cash in there for whoever has the wallet so they got gas to get out of it. Like, I went straight into, like, yeah, do it. Who's going to get my keys, you know? It was very weird. But on the flip side to that, I've almost deleted it all. There's something so profound, at least for me, there was something so profound about the entire future in which I thought I had was gone. And it wasn't gone for one day, like a split second. It was gone for 6 months. To then when I actually felt like, okay, when I'm out of breath, I'm not going to die. You know, like I had resolved. It was like there's probably something in between those two extremes, right? So it's almost like now I've got this list of, like, I definitely want to, But that list is more about people. It's more about making the small memories of, like, I have 5 days left here in Darwin before I go back to the US. What do I want to do? What do I want to do with each of those nights? That's the list. It's not so much like I'm going to be the blah, 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 or, and then the movie is one that I feel like has to happen because that's why I'm alive. Like everything turned to entertain this idea of this movie concept, you know? So those two things is kind of where I live here. And Lynn, you said something profound last night. I said to Lynn, what did we used to say we wanted to be when we were younger? Like, what did I talk about? Like, what did I want to do? What did I want to be? Because I was exploring that exact question of, like, what should be on my bucket list? Surely there was stuff that I thought about. And she said, oh, babe, I don't think we even did. I think we just focused on, you know, what we were going to do that day. And it was true. We just focused on having fun and, like, being in that particular moment. So it's really interesting. And I no longer have a timeline. I give myself milestones. Like, I want to make this movie. And then I have a connection with my higher power where I go, all right, this movie kept me alive. I'm going to do these 3 things I know to do. I'm going to call this person because they're in the movie business. And then you tell me what's next. And that's all I do. I just literally take those next 2 or 3 steps. And it tends to unfold. So I think that's the biggest thing that changed. Work for me specifically, I still log work hours, but I truly love it. Like, I just don't do shit I don't want to do. Even like in my interview for this last job, I now lead Virgin Voyages advertising, so the cruise company for Richard Branson. And in the interview, they said, I said to them, look, if you're looking for someone who's like a client person that's going to pander to all of your needs, not me. If you're looking for someone that's going to build a business and drive real results for you, I'm into that kind of stuff. And they were like, okay. I also said I don't like cruising and you couldn't catch me down on a cruise ship. And they still said yes. So there it is. They ask me every week. I'm like, no, I'm still a no. But it's because I like it. And the minute I set my life up so that I'm never in a position where I have to do something I don't want to do. I stashed money away. I did, I did the sensible things so that the day I go in and I go, nah, this doesn't feel right anymore, I can. That's more important for me, is to have the flexibility to do or not do versus feeling like I'm trapped in a spot. That was my commitment to myself. I'm never again being in a spot. If I don't want to be there, can't pay me. That's what really changed for me. Anyone else? Thank you. I have put up a website and I've got my Instagram handle where a lot of what the next phase of this is really helping people advocate for themselves in medical. People have asked me, like, what did you ask your doctors? How did you build a doctor team? I've got 5 of them that are just amazing. I had to add one to the list and he came in and said, I'm really excited to be a part of the Avenger team. And then he put his hands together in prayer and he prayed over me. And he said, it's just a small hurdle. I'll take care of you and I'll take care of your body. And then he goes, and I want George Clooney to play me. And I just met him. They'd already briefed him on, like, this is what you got to know. So, and he's the best doctor for vascular in the west coast of the States. And so people ask me, how did you build that bond? So my next round is to really sit down and formalize and spruce up some of the checklists that I just made for myself years ago and really help people to help them or their loved ones say, these are the questions you need to ask. These are the labs you should be getting just every year as standard. And this is what they mean. Just from a, plebs perspective, to give people more of an opportunity to do that. And organ donation, any questions anyone has about that, that's the place to catch me. It's a bit of a taboo sometimes of, like, what does it mean to be an organ donor? But I'm really, really huge on that, as you can imagine. So if no one has any other questions, I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures. So this was just a picture of when that was my first walk on December 30th, and that was 20 days later. This is in September of 2020, which was only 9 months after my chest being sawn in half. I'm going to go back a little bit. So this was Labor Day weekend. This was my fancy hospital room and the surgery that they did in the ICU. And this was my friend Martha. She took care of me for 2 months. She's my sister. She's really not my friend. Her and I went through the entire experience together. She kept my family abreast of everything that was happening. She literally carried me from the car to the bed, to showering me, to one day one of the guys was giving me this life jacket thing that I had to wear for a bit. And he looked at her and he said, "Can you tell your mom to," talking about me? And she goes, "You're going to die." I was standing over with my chest out over a walker looking at him like, if I even had 3 seconds of breath, I would jump over this thing. So we had many moments that were just laughter upon laughter of just sharing with each other this entire experience. This is my aunt, so you can see she's a real nun. And she FaceTimes me regularly every day towards the last month to make sure that I was good. Her chapel that she prayed at, this is Peggy, the chaplain at Cedars-Sinai. Amazing. She's also a Reiki master and a chaplain. That's the kind of combination that just was amazing at that hospital. Turns out 3 of the doctors are deacons in their own faiths. It was just very, very weird combo. This was Christmas Eve, and ironically, they called this a Christmas tree. I'm like, not what I had in mind, but yes. And then these were the 3 doctors that were there, and this is Nurse Margaret. They said afterwards that after a minute, they start to give up. It's not like in the movies, apparently. You don't do CPR for 45 minutes. And these were the 3 doctors that were standing at the edge of my bed. I literally wouldn't be alive without them. So it was really, really big, that picture you saw. And that was September. And I was just going to do a little, I'm going to see how good I am at this. No, it might not work. So this is Jonathan. It's one of my best friends. Oh, it does work, but we can't hear it. It's okay. And this is Rachel, who's playing herself in the movie. You know what's really interesting is Rachel found out 2 months ago that she has colon cancer at 36. And you can imagine our approach to that. She was like, "Oh, it's just my turn because I'm the best friend that God was talking about. So I've got to build a church. I have to have my own story to go through this. You make your movie first, I'll make my movie second." It's just, you meet those people that breathe life into you and speak life. The biggest thing, surround yourself with them and love on them and have them go nowhere. And she currently is just in beast mode with such grace in going through her own experience. And then Bam was one of the other ones. She's a Darwin born and bred. She now lives in Chicago. So she was really great in being there as well. And then my lovely aunt, who, just to give you a visual, has said and promised that I will make the best of living to my fullest to allow for my 29-year-old donor's legacy to live on. So I thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to have you all, and thank you for listening and for sharing this time with me.